Hi there, I'm Vincent Boss and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing what letting go does to the dumper mindset. I provide audio coaching to help people try and get their ex back or get a new girlfriend or boyfriend. Check out my website for more details. www.dateme.tips. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast, and today we are discussing what letting go does to the dumper mindset. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, you will often hear people say that you need to let go. But how on earth can this increase the chance of you getting your ex back? In today's podcast, I'm going to discuss 3 things that letting go does to the dumper mindset. So let's get straight into this. And number 1 is creates a feeling of rejection. So there is nothing more attractive than rejection, and as a dumpee, this is something that you likely already know. Now, one of the quirks of a human experience is that if we are rejected, we feel an increased level of interest, intrigue, and attraction to that thing. So an example that I like to give is if you are applying for jobs. Let's imagine you've applied for a few jobs, and of course, you will have your own preference in reality about which is your favourite job that you're applying for. And hence there will also be a job that you feel least interested in. Let's say you apply for 3 jobs, one of which will be one that you're thinking, well, I don't really want this job, but I've applied for it anyway. Now, if you was to get an interview for this particular job that you don't really have a high level of interest in, you will still go to that interview and you will still do your thing and you'll give it your best shot and you will see what happens. You're probably still thinking, I don't really want this job. I'm just going through the motions. I'm just practicing the interview technique for if I get offered a job that I really want. Well, anyway, you go through this interview process and then you are told, unfortunately, you're not the candidate that we are looking for. Unfortunately, you have not been successful in your application. Now, at this stage, most people will feel this level of rejection as something a lot more powerful than they could ever have imagined. Most people at this stage will start to feel like, well, why on earth did you reject me? I wanted you to offer me the job. I wanted you to offer me the job so I could make the decision. Just because I didn't really want this going into it doesn't mean that I didn't want you to offer me it. And this is all because you have been rejected. There is nothing more attractive than rejection. You have been rejected for the job, and hence you really want that job. You really want the opportunity to be offered the job, and hence you could have then decided if you wanted it or you didn't. You probably still wouldn't have accepted it, but the point is, you wanted to be offered it. You can't understand, you can't believe, you can't get your head around the fact that you wasn't successful, that you were rejected. So now let's look at this in regards of a relationship. When we consider a relationship, if you have been rejected as you have been as a dumpee, this is why you feel a heightened level of interest, intrigue and attraction for your dumper. As a dumpee, you will actually be feeling a high level of attraction now to your dumper than you likely did when you was in the relationship. When you was in the relationship and things was just ticking along, you probably didn't feel the level of attraction that you feel right now for your dumper, and this is because they have rejected you. So now let's flip this round and imagine a scenario where you are letting go. You are letting go of this connection. You have been dumped and you are no longer going to chase. You are no longer going to try to get your ex back by means of chasing, by means of messaging your ex, knocking on their door, waiting outside where they work. You are going to stop doing these things and you are going to let go and move forward on your own life without your dumper. What do you think happens to the dumper mindset? Well, as you could probably have worked out by now, they will be feeling a feeling of rejection, a sense of rejection. Because the mystique of the human mindset is that even though a dumper has ended a relationship, even though a dumper does not want the dumpy in their life right now, subconsciously they are still expecting the dumpy to chase them. So let's try and get our heads around this once more. A dumper ends a relationship and hence they do not want their dumpy in their life right now, but they're expecting their dumpy to contact them. So they don't want their dumpy to contact them, but they're expecting their dumpy to contact them. And when the dumpy doesn't contact the dumper, this creates intrigue in the back of their mind, in their subconscious. This starts to develop a feeling of wonder, of why, of rejection. The dumper will start to feel that burning level of rejection slowly but surely going through their mindset. And even though it doesn't burn as bright as what a dumpy is feeling right now, because the rejection isn't as obvious, the rejection is obviously more subtle, the rejection is something in the back of their mind rather than the front, it doesn't mean that the level of rejection isn't there slowly but surely building up steam in the back of their mind. So if a dumpy decides to move forward with their life, if a dumpy decides to let go of a situation, the dumper will start to feel a slow burning feel of rejection, because in their subconscious, they're expecting the dumpy to chase them. And this is why, number one, it's so important as a dumpy. If you're wondering, why should I be letting go? Well, it creates rejection in your dumper's mind. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast about what letting go does to the dumper mindset. And point number 2 is it levels the scales of value. So as we was discussing in point number 1, the fact that if rejection is starting to be created in the dumper mindset, then this will of course slowly but surely start to grow intrigue, start to grow attraction in their mind for their dumpy. But not only will this be working on the level of rejection, but also on the concept of the scales of value. Now, when somebody ends a relationship, they automatically become a high value individual because they have made a decision which has gone through. They've made a decision which has been implemented, which has happened. The dumpy, on the other hand, unfortunately, becomes a low value individual. The dumpy wanted something which was for the relationship to continue, but unfortunately, their desire, their want didn't happen. So what they wanted didn't happen, and therefore the dumpy becomes the lower value individual. Now we have to also consider that the dumpy was perhaps dumped because of low value behaviour. That is the story for another podcast. But if we are to consider that the dumpy was probably showcasing themselves as a low value individual anyway, and now they have been dumped, so unfortunately they're incredibly low value. So we've got the dumpy who is very low value, and the dumper who is very high value. Now why is that a problem? Well, the problem is that most romantic relationships will only work successfully if the scales of value are roughly level. So we need to level up the scales of value if you want to try to get your ex back. If you're a dumpy and you want to get your ex back, you can't get them back if you're really low value and they're very high value. You need to be taking them off their pedestal and you need to be raising your value as well. And one of the ways you can do this is by letting go. If you let go, then in the dumper mindset, as I was saying, they're going to feel that level of rejection that I was speaking of in point number 1. But this will also start to showcase that the dumpy can move forward on their own journey and they don't need the dumper. So, if the dumper is thinking that they've been rejected, if the dumper is thinking that the dumpy doesn't need them, then the dumper has started to realise that they are as not a high value individual as maybe they thought. The dumper is starting to realise, look, I can't be that great a person because my dumpy doesn't even need me. My dumpy is not reaffirming my value. And that is why I was speaking in point number 1, saying that a dumper doesn't want the dumpy to chase them, but subconsciously they are expecting them to. And that is because subconsciously the dumper is expecting the dumpy to reaffirm their high value. And if the dumpy doesn't chase them, if the dumpy shows that they don't need them, then the dumper will have to realise that they are not this incredibly high value person. And not only that, the dumpee is higher value than the dumper gave them credit for. So the dumper's value is starting to lessen because the dumpee doesn't need them. And at the same hand, the dumpee, by moving forward on their own journey, is raising their own value. And we're starting to see the scales of value, we're starting to see them level up. And this is so crucial because romantic emotional attraction will only grow if somebody believes that the other person is a high value individual. Whether you're trying to get your ex back, whether you're trying to meet somebody new, the level of attraction that you feel towards somebody will generally go up if you believe they're a high value individual. This is how attraction generally works. So it's so important that you level the scales of value. And by letting go, by moving forward on your own life, the dumpee will lessen the value of the dumper and will heighten the value of themselves being able to go on their own journey with confidence and an abundance mindset. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast about what letting go does to the dumper mindset. And point number 3 is it stops frustration. So if the dumpee stops chasing, then they stop making things worse. Now, as I've been saying throughout today's podcast, although a dumper might be expecting subconsciously to hear from their dumpee, they don't want to hear from their dumpee after a breakup has taken place. So now we are thinking of the conscious mind, and the conscious mind of a dumper is that they've ended the relationship and they don't want to be chased, they don't want to be hassled, they don't want the dumpee to keep messaging them. And therefore, if the dumpee stops chasing their ex, if the dumpee stops messaging their ex, they will also stop the frustration building up in the dumper's mind. Because if a dumpee chases their ex, they will likely be causing them frustration. It is not respecting the decision the dumper made. When somebody ends a relationship, they are saying that I don't feel comfortable moving forward in this direction with you. Unfortunately, I don't feel fulfilled in this relationship. If as a dumpee, you just keep chasing your ex from this point, you're basically saying, I don't really care how you feel, I just care about how I feel. You know, I want you, and it doesn't matter that you don't currently want me. Doesn't matter, I'm only thinking about myself. It's a very selfish mindset, it's a very desperate mindset, and it isn't respecting the dumper. Do you think the dumper is going to want to take you back if you are not respecting them? The dumper is thinking, you're not listening to a word I'm saying, you keep chasing me. So what I always say is that at the time of a breakup, the dumpee needs to make sure that they stop making things worse. And one of the best ways that you can stop making things worse is to let go, is to move forward on your own journey and to stop chasing your ex. Stop chasing the dumper. If you are not contacting your dumper, then you're not making things worse. If you stop making things worse, then slowly but surely, things have an opportunity to get better. Now, there is no 100% guaranteed way to get your ex back. Not every dumpee can get their ex back. But what I try to do is give you the best opportunity of trying to get your ex back. And one of the ways you can do this is stop frustrating your dumper. Stop annoying your dumper. Make sure you are respecting their decision. And therefore, if you let go, if you move forward on your own path as a dumpee, you are stopping making things worse. You're not going to make things worse if you concentrate on your own journey. If you keep messaging your dumper, if you try to call your dumper, if you stand outside where they work, if you knock on their house door, these things are going to be making things worse. And at the time of a breakup, you need to stop making things worse. And by stopping making things worse, you will slowly but surely give the opportunity for things to get better. This is why I would always say, if you move forward with your life, if you let go, then you will stop the frustration that you are creating in the dumper mindset. Unfortunately, your dumper doesn't feel a high level of romantic emotional attraction for you right now. The level of attraction they feel is very, very low. Do you really think frustrating them is going to increase that attraction? No, it's not. It's going to decrease it further. It's going to plummet even further. Stop frustrating your ex, and you stand an excellent opportunity of growing romantic emotional attraction in their mind. And if it hits the necessary high point, this is when a dumper might reach out to their dumpee and be in the consideration of reconnecting, reconciling, and getting back together. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.
Yeah, if you miss your ex, we can help with that. Help you get him back, or we can help find you someone else. Yeah, Vincent Bo, the relationship coach, giving you some insight, bringing you a new approach. DateMe.tips, go and check the site, giving you advice, helping with your love life. Get your ex back, or move to the next. Ain't no sweat, you know Vincent Bo got you. Finding love ain't no problem. Yeah, DateMe.tips, check it out now.